And they're off in the 7th running of the Pink Ribbon.
It's been called the sport of kings, but horse racing has brought far more than just entertainment to Charlestown, providing a rich history and vital economic impact on the local community and the state. Horse racing in West Virginia is full of historical milestones. The roots of thoroughbred racing in Charlestown stretch back all the way to the 1780s, when bets on races were still made in British pounds. And on May 9, 1786, George Washington attended the races, even making a wager at Captain William Cherry's Tavern. He would become the nation's first president just 3 years later. In December of 1933, A.J. Boyle and his brother invested $160,000 to build Charlestown races. The track became famous as a year-round track like those in Florida and California, and soon drew tourists from all over to West Virginia, putting West Virginia horse racing on the map. Less than 20 years later, on December 6, 1952, Bill Hartack won his first race at Charlestown. Bill would go on to win a record 5 Kentucky Derbies and become a racing legend, leading the nation in wins 4 times, and was the first rider to have purse earnings of $3 million in a season. On February 22, 1968, it was time for another first. Barbara Jo Rubin made history while riding Cohesion at Charlestown, becoming the first woman in the nation to win a pari-mutuel race on a major U.S. track. It's important to note that the passion for racing that Charlestown inspires isn't limited to jockeys and horsemen. Author Lauren Hillenbrand, best-selling author of Seabiscuit, stated that she first discovered her love of racing at this West Virginia track.
We start today what may be one of the most important primaries in the United States. The great issue confronting West Virginia in 1960, of course, is economic development.
But by the late 1970s, the track was facing severe competition from Maryland. The state was providing financial incentives for horsemen breeding horses there. But in 1984, with the help of delegates Tom Steptoe and Clarence E. Martin III, the West Virginia Breeders' Fund Bill was passed by legislature, providing breeders and horsemen the funds to grow their farms, upgrade racing stock, and compete with other racing states. This led to renewed interest in West Virginia racing, and in 1987, football great and West Virginia native Sam Huff returned home. He had seen how much a day that showcased the best Maryland-bred horses improved Maryland industry, and he brought that vision to his home state. He led the effort to create the West Virginia Breeders' Classic races to provide those same incentives to West Virginia breeders. Sam's vision has flourished and now provides over $1 million in purses to West Virginia horsemen annually, as well as thousands of dollars to state and local charitable organizations. Then in 1996, Penn National Gaming proposed offering video lottery at the racetrack. Seeing the benefits that this proposal could bring to the horse industry, the community passed the referendum, and Penn National invested $175 million to overhaul the track and build what is now Hollywood Casino at Charlestown Races. It's here that thousands of slot machines and additional table games help provide the revenue for Sam's Breeders' Fund, the horsemen's purses, as well as revenue for the county, city, and state. In the legislation that legalized slot machines, legislature mandated that a specific portion of revenues generated by gaming be invested in a fund supporting West Virginia breeders and owners. The legislature found that horse racing, dog racing, and breeding play a critical role in the economy of the state, enhance the revenue collected at the racetracks, provide vital revenue to counties and municipalities in which activities are conducted, provide significant employment, and protect and preserve green space.
Jefferson County is an ecosystem. It depends on farms, businesses, and labor. Every farm generates more in tax revenue than it requires in services. Every business requires customers who have money to spend. Without Jefferson County farms, we simply won't have a Jefferson County the way we've all come to love it.
These statements have been validated. The horse racing and breeding industries generate more than $252 million in business volume, supporting not just the horsemen, but also area farriers, farmers, vets, banks, feed supply stores, and insurance agents.
Everything that we get out of this industry, financial gains, they go right back into the industry, into the help, the feed, the straw, the vets, the people around here. There's a lot of things that go on in a breeding industry in the thoroughbred world.
The industry also creates 5,348 jobs in West Virginia, including breeders, owners, jockeys, trainers, grooms, and exercise riders.
My name's Matt McGowan. Been a rider at Charlestown for 14 years. Had my steady income from Charlestown, West Virginia for 14 years. Came from Midwest, came from Wisconsin, and if it hadn't been for racing in West Virginia, I wouldn't have been able to raise a family here, year-round racing in West Virginia. I wouldn't have been able to raise my daughter here. I spend all of my money in West Virginia, at the grocery store, at the bank. I do all of my business in West Virginia, strictly because of horse racing in West Virginia. If that wasn't here, and I would still be in Wisconsin, probably be a dairy farmer.
Lately, there's been a lot of talk about decoupling gaming and racing and undoing the legislation that required a portion of gaming revenues be dedicated to supporting the racing industry and infrastructure in West Virginia. The result of this action could be devastating to the West Virginia horse industry.
Over my years and decades of experience, not only as a lifelong resident of Jefferson County, but also as a business owner and most importantly, 25 years of government service as county commissioner and your state senator, I realized that live thoroughbred racing is extremely critical to Jefferson County. It's a cornerstone of our economy that's been here for many, many, many decades. And 20 years ago, the state legislature adopted laws that allowed video gambling at the tracks, and that was great. Everyone embraced that. The voters passed the referendum. But now there's sort of a second look at that 20 years later, and some want to reduce the amount of money that goes into live racing. That would be a serious, serious mistake in that you will potentially destroy thoroughbred racing here in Jefferson County. That's thousands and thousands of jobs, all the way from the jockeys and the owners and the trainers, all the way through to the farmers that sell the hay, Tractor Supply, Southern States, everyone. We've seen that happen when a large business goes out of business in Jefferson County. When Dixie Narco went out, it even hurt the banks. So what I ask the legislators and everyone to think about is be very measured in your approach to this. We hear legislators all over, particularly in West Virginia, talk about jobs, job creation, jobs, jobs, jobs. And that's all great, but you must be mindful to protect the jobs that we have. The problem is not live racing. That's not the part of that model that's broken. In fact, that's the part that's still doing well. What's eating our lunch in West Virginia is the 20 casinos that we now compete with in other states around West Virginia. When this started 20 years ago, we were the only game in town. There were no other casinos. That's the problem. The legislature must address that and take a look at how do we repair the lottery model.
You should think of horse racing and horse breeding just like you think of any other business. It involves a capital investment. It involves an investment of time and labor and love. For a horse breeder, you need to purchase a farm, you need to build fences, you need to pay for feed, you need to pay for a farrier, you need to have veterinarians. And all of this must be done before you have any assurance whatsoever that you'll ever make a profit on that horse. So, like any business, you need infrastructure. Many businesses we think of need roads, highways, sewers, water. Horse breeding needs an infrastructure as well. It needs farmland, it needs people who can provide hay and feed, it needs veterinarians, farriers, it needs people to transport horses to and from the track, and most importantly, it needs a market. And in the case of horse racing and horse breeding, the market is having a purse to race for at a track where you can race.
Thoroughbred racing continues to provide a boost for tourism, as well as thousands of jobs and millions of dollars of positive economic impact, proving that the legislature was correct in 1996 when they stated that a substantial interest exists in protecting and preserving these industries. Horse racing in West Virginia is not just a job, it's a legacy.
Field gate to wire. Julie's Jewelry, a big effort, will be second best. Flattering B was back in third, and for fourth was Checkup from Z-Neck-Up. Unofficial winning time, 1:23 and 4.